Hello, this is Anna Dimichik, and talking to me today is Elizabeth Young. Elizabeth is an entrepreneur and owner of Young Law Offices. Her law firm practices family law, business law, and intellectual property in the Southern California. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for having me here with you today.
Thank you so much. Now, I understand you were just in a crazy earthquake, right?
Yeah, we had a 4.4 earthquake with the epicenter in Pasadena this morning. And I'm in Monterey Park, which is really close to Pasadena. So we felt it really hard.
You don't look frazzled at all, like nothing even happened. So
Well,
I
it's,
guess
it's
you're
been a
used
couple
to it.
hours now, so I'm over it. But I
Mhm.
was actually meeting with the Monterey Park Fire Department when it happened, and I was told to go under the table. So I stayed there for a few minutes. And my daughter called me, and she was quite frazzled
Oh,
because she was lying in bed when it happened. So, yeah,
she
really
really
scary.
felt it.
She
She
really
really
felt it.
felt it.
Yeah.
Now, Elizabeth, if you recall, we met about 2 years ago to discuss a business project, and I thought it would be a 30-minute or maybe 40-minute long coffee meeting. But our conversation went on for like 2.5 hours, and it could have continued, but each of us had something else to do. So that was amazing. And that's why I really wanted to have you over because I rarely get this. I rarely get so fascinated with people that the conversation suddenly blows into something so long. So I really wanted to get a chance to ask you a whole lot of questions, considering that you also have big changes ahead of you this year, right? So can you tell
I
us a little bit
do.
about what you're up to?
Yeah, I remember that conversation we had. We had so much to talk about, so much in
Yeah.
common, so many similar interests. That was a great conversation. I didn't want it to end, if it wasn't for pre-scheduled appointments that we had to go to afterwards. But since then, a lot of stuff has happened. I'm currently running for Monterey Park City Council. So the election is in November, and juggling campaigning, along with growing our law practice and raising two teenager kids who's starting high school this week. We're opening up a new office in Pasadena in the next quarter. So busy with that as well. We've been renovating our Pasadena office for the last year after we closed escrow in August.
How do you make it all happen? How does it work?
Well, I think my problem is that I can't sit still and I have too much energy. So I have to put the energy somewhere. My husband is actually the complete opposite of me. He's the homebody. He can just sit on the massage chair for hours, and so we somehow balance each other out. He takes care of the home stuff, and the he keeps me grounded, and I'm everywhere, out and about. Can't sit still.
Wow. But what is your typical day like? Like, what time do you get up? How do you get out the door with two teenagers? Do you take them to school? How do the mechanics work?
So I'm actually not a morning person.
Hmm.
The best ideas come to me at nighttime, late in the evenings, like midnight, 1 in the morning. And so I tend to go to bed later. And I set my alarm typically for 8:45 a.m. in the morning, which is a pretty late morning. But if I don't have a morning schedule, I could sleep in easily till like 10:30 a.m., 11 a.m. I love sleeping in. So I have a morning coach who I pay to take my calls every morning. Because at 8:45, even when my alarm sounds, if I don't have someone to talk to, I can easily snooze and continue sleeping. So when my alarm sounds, the first thing I do is reach for my phone and call my coach. And I'm usually groggy calling him, and we speak for 10, 15 minutes every morning. He asks me what my intentions are for the day, what if there's anything negative that happened the day before, we clear that up, and then he has me on this consistent morning routine every morning, and by the time I'm done speaking with him after 10, 15 minutes, I can't go back to sleep, so I get out of bed and start my day. But that's my consistent morning routine every morning, to call my morning coach.
That's such an interesting practice. I never heard of it. So
Yeah,
you're not the kind of person who hates people in the morning. You actually need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, well, I think if I had to like talk to a client, or talk to something that's like productive, I probably wouldn't do that. But the morning coach, he knows I'm groggy in the morning, so he prepares me. It's through a company called Rise Sync. Rise like rising up, and sync like synchronicity. So
Mhm.
risesync.com is the company. And their whole philosophy is that morning routines dictate how we handle the rest of the day. You know how they say, like, if you get out of bed on the wrong side of the bed, it could ruin your whole day. So it's good to have a good morning routine to dictate the schedule for your whole day afterwards.
Do you do anything else to keep that morning thing going?
So you were asking about the kids. I'm fortunate that I don't have to take the kids to school in the morning. I joke with my friends. They're like, "How do you do it all?" I joke and say, "I have an ex-husband who helps me take care of the kids, and I have a husband who now works on the business for me. So that's how I have free time to do community work and run for public office." But basically, like, my kids are from my first marriage, from my ex-husband, and actually that's how I got into family law, because I went through my own divorce, which lasted 4 years long. It was only a 1.5 year marriage. But my ex-husband and I are great friends now, and he lives in South Pasadena, where my kids go to school. So the last 4 years, he was actually rebuilding a new home. He tore down his old house and rebuilt it, and it took 4 years to build, because during the pandemic,
Mhm.
construction, labor, everything went up, and it took a lot longer than he expected. So the kids were with me for the last 4 years, and my husband, my current husband, handled the morning routine. He's a morning person, so he gets up early in the morning, makes breakfast, takes the kids to school, and then I handle the afternoon routine. I pick up the kids, take them to their extracurricular activities after school. But now, after my ex-husband finished his house, they're living with my ex-husband Monday through Fridays, and I'm all of a sudden a weekend mom. So
Mm.
my husband and I don't have any weekday kid duties anymore. So he doesn't have to take them to school. I sleep till 8:45 a.m. And we have so much more free time on our hands now because we don't have the kid duties on the weekdays.
All right. So the ex-husband, that's what gave rise to the family law practice part of your law practice, right? As you mentioned. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Sure. So, my original area of practice was intellectual property law, because my background is electrical engineering and computer science. And so I did IP law for the first many years of my career, did patents, trademarks, and copyrights. When I filed for divorce back in 2010, I had never filed a divorce petition for any client in my whole career. And I looked it up on the internet. I was like, oh, it's a 2-page divorce petition. How hard can this be? So I tried to do it myself without hiring a lawyer. And, boy, was I wrong. Like, family law was way more complex than I had anticipated it to be. And so, I ended up hiring a very cheap family law attorney, like $200 an hour, to just guide me through the steps. And I was still trying to represent myself. My ex-husband, his first attorney was maybe like 250 an hour. He's not an attorney, but he's smart enough to be one. He's a Caltech grad, very smart
Mm.
guy. So we started off with really cheap attorneys, and then the first hearing was a disaster. The two attorneys like did not know what they were doing. They were very junior, hence their you get what you pay for, hence their hourly rate. So I fired mine, got one that was slightly more expensive, 350 an hour. He fired his, got a $400 an hour attorney, and this continued for 4 years. I ended up going through 5 law firms during my divorce case, and my final attorney was charging $850 an hour, and his
Oh.
final attorney was charging $1,000 an hour. He hired the most expensive lawyer in downtown LA at the time, and between the two of us, we ended up wasting $500,000 on attorney fees for a 1.5 year marriage. So even though it was a very expensive experience during those 4 years, I learned everything about family law through my own personal journey. child custody battle, restraining orders, spousal support, asset division, you name it, whatever could come up in a case we dealt with, because we were just so emotional and angry and upset with each other that we were doing whatever it took to win. But it wasn't until like in the middle of the fourth year that I realized there's no winner in a divorce case. And if we continue this, we could be battling for the next 18 years. So we ended up firing the lawyers, settling the case, becoming friends, and co-parenting. And, we've been friends for the last 10 years, since 2014.
And so you decided to put it to good use and share your knowledge with other people.
Basically, yeah. During my divorce, that was like the main topic. It was always like on the tip of my tongue. So my friends who were going through divorces started asking me if I could represent them as well. And I said,
Hmm.
sure, why not? I'm getting pretty good at this. And all of a sudden, the demand just went up for family law cases, especially during the pandemic, the last
Oh,
4 years, 5 years. IP cases was not as high in demand. Family law skyrocketed. And that's how we got to where we are today, where family law is like more than 80% of our practice.
And what is your practice like now? Is it mostly white Caucasians? Is it mostly Asian community? How does that break down?
It's a combination, but I would say we have a big percentage of our clientele that is Asian, because our headquarters is in Monterey Park. And Monterey
Hmm.
Park is predominantly Chinese and other Asians as well. So we have a lot of Mandarin, Cantonese, Chinese speaking clients that come to us because our attorneys are bilingual. And so we're able to communicate with them in Chinese. And there's just a shortage of Chinese family law attorneys for some
Yeah,
reason. There's a lot of Chinese immigration lawyers in the area, but there's not very many family law attorneys. I don't know what it is
I
about.
see the same thing.
Yeah. I guess Chinese attorneys are not advised to go into family law for some reason, or maybe it's like too emotional an area for them.
Hmm.
But we don't have a lot of competition in that area.
Right. No, that's the same thing that I see. And even here up north, it's the same thing. And all the attorneys who practice any family law know each other. And we run into each other in court all the time because it's really the same three people, I guess. Something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But it's so emotionally draining. I mean, I have a lot of people who just don't want to practice family law. I ask them if they even if they would like to get into family law when I'm hiring attorneys, and they're like, no, I can't handle it. It's a very normal reaction that I get.
Yeah, and we've had attorneys come through our office who are new to family law, and they give it a try for a few months and they leave. They're like, this is not for me. We can't handle it. It's too
Hmm.
emotional. So family law is not for everybody. I always tell people you have to have a certain personality to be able to deal with this high amount of emotions.
Right. And do you see any kind of cases arising out of, let's say, culture clash between, let's say, Asian traditions and American legal system?
Absolutely. We have a lot of cases where, one of the parents is Asian and then the other parent is more Americanized. And because of the difference in culture, they have a clash. And, one of the top reasons for divorce is actually in laws, because
Mm,
American culture and Asian culture are very different when it comes to parents. In the
right.
American culture, once the child turns 18, they're on their own, they're independent, and the parents are happy for them, they can live their own lives. In the Asian culture, on the other hand, actually very similar to European culture, it's a very tight knit family. And so parents don't expect their children to just go off on their own lives when they become adults. They expect them to come back, take care of them. You have a lot of generations, a lot of families where there's like three generations living under the same roof, and in-laws want to have a big part in the marriage, but sometimes that's one too many opinions for a relationship. So when you
Mhm.
have in-laws butting in on two people who are married, it can cause a lot of issues. And I actually have a lot of consultations where the party comes in with a parent as part of the consultation, and the
Oh my
parent
God.
has more questions and more concerns than the party who's going through the divorce, and it makes
I've
things more.
never had that.
No.
No, never happened to
do
me
you do you
somehow.
have a lot of Asian clients?
Yeah, most of my
Yeah,
clients are Asian. Yes, and we do some family law, but I don't think I ever encountered that anyone coming in with their parents.
that's
Whose
funny. Yeah.
whose parents would you do you see more being involved more frequently, the wives or the husbands?
It's pretty equal, but I do see a lot of the husband's parents. It's actually the person who has more money than their
Mm,
parents are more involved, because a lot of the parents are worried that their hard-earned money might be split 50% with their child's spouse. So we do estate planning as well, and so a lot of parents will come in and say, "How do I, set up a trust so that my child's spouse will not be able to get the money if they do divorce?" So
mm.
they're more involved when they're the richer family.
And is this the main issue that people are having, the money, or are there any other things of concern?
The main issue is finances. Yeah, protecting
Hmm.
the money, fear of losing the money, differences in financial management. Maybe one person's a bigger saver, one person's a bigger spender. So finances is a big deal, and then next is infidelity and affairs, and then
Hmm.
in-laws as well.
I see. So the things I see in my practice a lot is more of a clash when the I guess the courtship traditions come to head with American legal system, and it's not. It's sometimes it's in the divorce itself, and sometimes it's more stemming from a breakup, but where the couple was already very serious and prepared to be married. So one case I'm actually currently dealing with is a civil litigation matter, and but it's also like representative of a situation that you frequently see with Asian couples is when a man buys a house and puts both names on the title, his and his fiance's. And the understanding is that they're going to get married and it's going to be a family home. But then the preparations fall apart. And suddenly, this fiance who did not put a penny towards the house is claiming half of it, right? And basically, the person who put the money down has a pretty decent case, but litigating alone is just so expensive that people don't want to go through it, and it's just so much hardship just having to go through court to fight it out, where it's so very clear cut.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I'm like, do not put your spouse's name on title unless you're okay if with them taking half of it if you guys were to split up tomorrow.
Hmm. And also, I noticed that oftentimes in this courtship phase, oftentimes the husband would make some really husband or fiance would take some really serious financial steps to provide for the family, or to at least show that he's providing for the family. For example, I saw cases where fiance or husband would start routing all of his money into the wife's account, but then the relationship falls apart and she keeps it all, including the savings, and he has to fight it out in court. I see a lot of those for some reason. Do you see any of that?
I do. Yeah. They always want to put their best foot forward during the courtship time, and then they regret it afterwards during the breakup time. Yeah. They say love is blind, right? When people are in love, they just do anything and regret it later.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I saw it somewhere that there have been recent changes in the law where prenuptial agreements are not as ironclad as they used to be, right? Because we used to advise people, okay, if you're taking those steps, then get a prenup, go ahead and write an agreement. But now it's not so.
Yeah, so before prenups are valid, but they can easily be invalidated for a myriad of reasons. Like if one party was not represented by counsel, they didn't understand what they were waiving, you can invalidate it. But now, recent case law says prenups are actually invalid
Mhm.
until validated. So they're presumed to be invalid, and the parties have to present evidence to the court showing that both parties understood the terms. They were represented by counsel. They waited the 7 days before signing. They had ample time to consider everything before it can even be valid. So it's like, in criminal law, the rule is like innocent till proven guilty, but they changed it to guilty till proven innocent. So I think, prenups are harder and harder to enforce in court, and judges want to have the power to override the prenups if they think the terms were not fair when they were entered into.
And does this validation happen strictly within the divorce proceedings, or is there any kind of separate procedure where you can request a validation before you even decide if you want to proceed with the divorce?
You know what? That's a great question. I don't know of any separate validation proceeding where they can just look at a prenup first before proceeding with the divorce. All of the cases I've dealt with are during the divorce proceedings. But that's an interesting question, because I think having a validation process, maybe that will affect the party's decision if they want to even file a divorce or not, right? If they're
I
not going
think
to,
it would.
yeah, if they're not going to get a good amount of money, maybe it's more reasonable for them to stay in the marriage. So that's an interesting question.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, the general requirements are really still the same. It's like wait the number of days and have each have their own counsel, and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah,
So that has
yeah,
not really changed.
right.
Okay.
All that stays the same. 7-day rule, both parties represented, all that's the same. Yeah, but that's why
Hmm.
I strongly spread the word about social marriage because
Hmm.
I always say like smart people sign prenups and postnups, but smarter people do social marriage instead of legal marriage.
Oh, so social marriage is essentially not an official marriage, right?
Yeah, social marriage is like similar to legal marriage, except the two parties don't sign the legal license. They can have the
Hmm.
wedding ceremony, they can have children together, they can own property together, but they just don't default to the family code because they're not legally married. They can actually sign a separate social marriage contract if they want to put the palimony terms in writing, or if they want to, it's like a business partnership if they want to own property and, have a buyout agreement or like a termination agreement if they were to split up, how they would split up the assets. But it wouldn't be a legal marriage contract. It would just be a legal, like a social marriage contract.
Hmm.
And they don't have to worry about it being unenforceable because it's not a prenup.
I see. Very interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So a lot of people are doing that. But then the downside is you don't get the protections from the government for a legally married couple. Like you won't be able to file taxes together. You
Hmm.
won't get the like estate planning. You can still do estate planning documents separately, but let's say two people didn't do estate planning, the the
Hmm.
the partner would not be able to automatically make decisions. The property wouldn't go
Right.
to the spouse if it wasn't properly put into the contract. They wouldn't get social security. They wouldn't be able to put themselves on their health insurance, for example. So there's a lot of downside, but then the upside is they have a lot more certainty. They dictate the
Hmm.
terms of the relationship rather than defaulting to the family code, which most people don't even know what the family code says when they get married.
And it changes all the time, anyways.
Exactly. It changes all the time too.
So basically, as long as you are healthy and you're making good money, social marriage makes a lot of sense. But as you get sicker and older, you need to start signing a lot of additional paperwork to just get protected.
Yeah, but even like if you get sicker and older, if you're not the breadwinner, the contracts give certainty because then you know exactly what you're going to get if you were to split up. A lot of the spouses that stay home, the stay at home moms and dads, a lot of them live in fear because they have no idea how much they're going to get if they were to file divorce against the breadwinner.
No, that's true because a lot of this is just practical work of even figuring out what assets are out there, right? Just finding it.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Right, right. And there's a lot of spouses hiding assets too. So,
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Forensic
yeah, I'm sure you
accountants
deal with that.
come in. Definitely. So, what gave you an idea to run for City Council of Monterey Park?
You know, it wasn't my idea. I never had an ambition to get into politics. I just like serving the community. I do a lot of volunteer work. At one point, I was sitting on the board for 9 different nonprofit organizations. And then I've also been part of the city's commissions, like 4 different commissions, like the Design Review Board, the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Community Participation Commission, and right now I sit as the chair of the Business Improvement District Advisory Council. So I just like doing a lot of public service, but I don't need, the title. But because I do so much service for the community members come to me and they ask me, hey, why don't you run for city council? And, you make a great
Hmm.
council member. And for years, I said no because I had kids to raise, I had a business to run. And this year, the stars aligned, and the incumbent in my district, Yvonne Yu, she personally called me and said, Elizabeth, I'm not going to be serving another 4 years. I'm going to take a break, and I would love to have you take my spot. So
What an endorsement.
yeah, I got a personal endorsement from the incumbent, and I couldn't say no to that. So I put in my name on the ballot, and now I'm campaigning.
Beautiful. Well, I'm sure you're extremely competent having done so much public service in all these different areas. You probably know all the in and outs, right, of how the city functions.
I do, yeah. Having served on all the different commissions in the city, I put the puzzle pieces together so I can see how the city functions in general. And so I felt like if I have all this experience and then the knowledge, the legal knowledge, and I don't serve the city, I'm actually doing the city a disservice. So I decided, if I have the capability, I should just volunteer my time. And the city of Monterey Park, it's not a full time position. It's essentially a
Hmm.
volunteer position. The city council
Oh,
members get a $500 a month stipend for
oh,
gas and incidentals. So, which I'm planning on redonating back to the Asian Youth Center because I'm on the board for the AYC. So definitely not doing it for the money. And it's
definitely not.
practically a volunteer position, but it's something that I'm passionate about, that I think I will enjoy, and I think I will also learn at the same time. So it's a good decision.
And you get to improve the place where you live.
Exactly. Yeah. I love the city of Monterey Park, where I've been here for the last 14 years. My kids grew up here. It's a beautiful city, and we want to maintain it and improve it.
And what are your targets? What are the primary areas that you want to improve?
Well, my first area has to do with business development because I'm a business owner within the city. I am on the business improvement district right now, and unfortunately, our commercial central area has a lot of room for improvement. We are missing a lot of public parking structure. So parking is a big
Mm,
issue. And that's one of the reasons a lot of businesses are not moving into the downtown area.
I
If you
see.
compare us to our neighboring cities like Pasadena or Alhambra, their downtown areas is a lot more happening, a lot more hustle and bustle in the evenings. And Monterey Park, we do have great restaurants, but at nighttime, it does somewhat become a ghost town. It's not as
Mm.
busy as it can be. So I want to bring bigger businesses and fill in the vacancies that are currently in the downtown area.
Hmm. Does your city deal a lot with homelessness?
We do. That's the other area that I really want to focus on. We are only 15 minutes from downtown LA, and
Oh.
the Olympics is coming in 4 years in 2028. So
Mhm.
downtown is busy trying to clean up the homeless area, and guess where all the homeless people are going? We are at
Oh,
the end of the gold line.
I
So
see.
all the homeless people, they get off the metro and they come to Monterey Park. They look at Monterey Park. They're
Mhm.
like, oh, this is a beautiful city. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to live here. And we're getting more and more homeless people. So that's another big thing we need to get resolved. I want to build more homeless shelters. And have more rehabilitation programs because one of the big reasons for homelessness is actually not a shortage of housing, but it's because of mental health issues. The
Absolutely.
homeless people actually don't want to go into housing because the reason they don't want to go in there is they don't want to follow the rules, right?
Hmm.
The rules have curfews. You have to be back in bed by 10 p.m. No alcohol, no drug use. So a lot of people choose to live on the streets because they have addiction issues or whatever reasons. But I think rehabilitation is more important than just creating more housing.
Absolutely, no, I agree with you. I was studying up on on the homelessness problem as well when I moved to California, and I was just really puzzled by the number of homeless. Every time I go to San Francisco, it's scary. I would go to criminal court, and I would park 200 feet away from the courthouse, and I would still see several people who are clearly under the influence, just as I'm walking from the parking and into the courthouse. Yeah, it's and so I started looking into what's going on, because New York, for example, until pandemic, New York did not have this problem, but San Francisco did for quite some time. And so, yeah, it does seem that most of the issues stem from mental health and substance abuse problems, and from lack of enforcement of mandatory treatment, essentially, right? Because the options are out there, they're available, but people don't want to take them, the treatment, the beds, and all of the resources.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So I think instead of imprisoning, people, they need to like have mandated programs for them to go through and get education and rehabilitation. That's the way to like resolve this problem.
Right, exactly. Well, wonderful. I mean, best of luck on this journey. I hope it all works out and you make a big impact.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited and learning a lot as I go along the journey. I definitely have a lot of blind spots, but it's a great educational experience.
Probably fewer than other people, right, who have not done all the public service. So I have to ask you, how do you stay organized? Like with all that commitments, what do you do? Do you have like running lists? Do you have reminders? Do you have all of them? Do you have a coach?
I have a journal. I have a weekly planner, and actually,
Hmm.
my previous weekly planner was like much smaller, this size, and then I decided to use the bigger one. So every day, I'm old school. I write everything in here. I do have my electronic calendar as well, but there's something special about pen
Yeah.
to paper that I like rather than just typing it into my phone. So I write everything down here, and I love checking things off. So it like brings me pleasure when I can check off something on my to-do list. So every day I'm just checking things off and getting things done.
Yeah, I do the same thing. And I do know a lot of very well organized people who absolutely prefer the calendar and the planner and the paper. And then the electronic calendar is more like for work meetings, I guess, right? But the
Hmm.
major things, they really go on that calendar.
Yeah, and this bigger calendar, it separates it into 15-minute intervals. So like 9, 9:15, 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock. And I can write something every 15 minutes. And they say like the even more efficient leaders in the world, like Elon Musk, they separate their schedule into 5-minute increments. So I'm not at the 5-minute increment yet, but 15 minutes is, good enough for me for now. But a lot of people, like, they're not at 15 minutes, they're doing either 30 minutes or 60 minutes, every hour. But 15 minutes actually, it's makes me pretty efficient and productive.
Does it actually work out on a regular basis for you?
It does.
It
Yeah.
does.
I get like probably 95% of my tasks accomplished every day, and then the ones that I don't, I move it to the next day and it eventually gets accomplished.
See, for myself, I noticed that I try to do that, but a lot of times I would end up with a big case coming in, or with an emergency hearing on a case I have. So I have to drop everything and go to court and take care of that, and then everything just goes by the wayside. And the only way to stay a little bit ahead of it is literally to do things in advance when the time slot pops up, like when I'm waiting, for example, for something else. So yeah, 15 minutes is not happening.
Well, I went to this seminar of how to manage a law firm, and one of the first questions they asked us is, how much time are you spending working in your firm versus on your firm? And majority of the hands that went up were spending the majority of their time working in the business and not on the business. So over the last few years, I actually implemented this system called EOS. It's the Entrepreneur's Operating System. It's based on the book called Traction, and it teaches business owners how to get themselves out of their business so that they can work on the business and not in the business. So after I learned that, I'm no longer on any cases. I'm not doing the day-to-day legal services, talking to opposing counsel, drafting MSAs, or negotiating terms. I step in for consultations on an as needed basis, but for the most part, I'm working on the business, working on the company culture, the vision, maybe some marketing, how to grow the business, opening up a new office. But the attorneys in my firm, they're the ones going to court. So I don't have that problem of having to deal with an ex parte last minute and, derailing my schedule.
Yeah, I tried that, but then I realized I just miss working in the business so much because I love going to court and I love interacting with the clients. I'm just, okay, this does not make sense if I don't do any of that. Like, why am I doing it for other people but not for myself? I really enjoy it. It's like, okay, I'm getting back into it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they say, like, as the owner, we have the luxury of picking what we like to do. And then the
Mhm.
stuff that we don't like to do, we can hire someone to do it. So for me, I really enjoy the CEO position. I love being the visionary of the business. But
Mhm.
if I was like, if I enjoyed doing the lawyer work and going to court instead of being the CEO, I could hire a CEO to run the business, and then I don't have to worry about the CEO tasks.
I guess so, yeah. Right. How do you raise your children with regards to this culture of you running a business? Are you trying to introduce them to it? Are you trying to somehow teach them the valuable skills now? Or are they just studying, going to school, and getting good grades?
So my kids actually have come into my business, and they've interned. They see how things are run. They've helped out here and there. My daughter actually wanted to be a lawyer for the longest time until the last
Hmm.
couple years when AI and ChatGPT got developed. Then she actually told me, "Mom, I'm gonna be still in school for at least 7 years because in 7 years she will." Graduate college. She's entering her sophomore year in high school, so she has 3 more years of high school, 4 more years of college. She's like, in 7 years, who knows how much more advanced AI is gonna grow till? Because it's already advanced so much in just 2 years. We don't know, what careers are going to be replaced, what tasks are going to be replaced, or even what new careers are going to be created. She's like, my future career in 7 years, maybe it's not even in existence today. So she's like,
Mhm.
Mom, don't even ask me what I'm going to be in the future. I'm just going to keep learning and growing, and then we'll see, where the industry is in 7 years. I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. So yeah, so I don't even like tell her to be a lawyer anymore because who knows how the industry is going to be like in the future.
Hmm. Well, I don't know. Lawyering, so much of it is client management and hand holding and just talking things through with people and explaining their options to them. I don't know how much AI would be a replacement for that. And even if it's a really good replacement, I don't know how many people would be okay with this being an AI. It's almost like they developed some of those apps where you have a psychologist, an AI psychologist talking to people, right? But some people are not okay with it because they want to talk to a human being.
That's true. Yeah. But now there's like more and more realistic looking avatars that are
Yeah.
resembling human beings. So, on the phone or in a computer, like it's so realistic. Sometimes you don't even know if you're talking to a human being or an AI. Like I've dealt with a lot of text messaging boxes where it's a
Yes.
computer on the other end, but they can fix my issues. And I don't even know if they're, a real person or not. But hey, if my issue gets resolved, I'm happy with it. So yeah,
No.
it's interesting. We'll see what happens. But
Hmm.
even my social media virtual assistant is working on an avatar for me so that in the future, when someone comes to our website, they have a question, they can talk to my avatar and think it's me, but it's actually not me.
Okay. How is it going to work with legal ethics and all of the legal advice and responsibility? Because this is also insurance related, right? I wonder how it's going to work.
Well, the avatar is for my virtual assistant company. So I have another business on top of my law practice. We connect virtual assistants from the Philippines with professionals and companies here. So the company is called optimizers.com. It's like combination of optimize and organize. So optimizers, and the avatar is for people going to the optimizers page and asking, hey, if I want to hire virtual assistants, what can they help me with? Is it admin stuff? Can they answer phone calls? How is their English? And then my avatar will answer those questions. So I'm not doing one for the law firm yet.
Got it. Yes, because okay, so it's not legal topics or anything of that sort.
Right, right. Not
Uh-huh.
having an avatar giving legal advice.
Okay, I can see that. Okay, yeah, but with legal advice, I think we're running into this whole area of who's going to be responsible if something goes wrong.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think AI hasn't developed to the point where it's completely independent yet. We can use it as a crutch, use it as a resource, but ultimately we're fully responsible for whatever outcome that we're using it on. Like, we don't want to be like that attorney who's put in false citations, made up citations, and didn't double check their work, and then got in big trouble with the judge. Right? It was
I
very
think he got
embarrassing.
in trouble for lying about it, essentially, right? It's not just that they got caught, but they tried to cover it up, and they came up with some affidavits that somebody notarized something. I don't know, but there was a lot of cover up that was much worse than the original embarrassment, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Dug
that was
themselves
bad.
deeper. But that was a
But go,
lesson learned for all attorneys.
it was, yeah. But going back to you raising your kids, do you have any specific philosophy for how you want to see them growing up?
Um, you know, One thing I learned about kids is that they have two buckets. One is attention and one is power. So as long as we make sure those two buckets are filled, then the kids are happy. So anytime I want them to do something, I don't tell them what to do. I give them options. Like, hey, do you want to do this or do you want to do this? And they get to make their choice, right? Like, if they don't want to study, for example, I tell them, do you want to have a successful career in the future and take this class, or do you want to maybe even be a homeless person later on with no job, and then now you can go play your video games. So I give them that choice, and then they make their choice. The only thing that I mandate on them, where I tell them they have no choice, is Chinese school. I force Chinese school on them. So I speak Mandarin with them at home ever since they were babies. That was the main language growing up. And when they learn English at school, they try to come home and speak English to me. I actually pretended I didn't speak English with them. And so if they spoke English, I'll pretend I don't understand. And they had to speak Mandarin with me in order to get a response. But I don't read and write Chinese that well. So I made them go to Chinese school on Sunday so they can learn the reading and writing portion of it. And most Sundays they are kicking and screaming, giving me a hard time. Mom, I don't want to go. I don't want to get out of the car. And I tell them, one day you will thank me, but right now you can hate me all you want for forcing you. But I know the benefits of being bilingual in the future. So you'll thank me one day. So that's the only thing that I force on them. But everything else, I give them a choice.
Mhm. And there are additional benefits to learning specifically Chinese or Japanese or any languages that use hieroglyphics, right? Because it forces you to utilize the other brain hemisphere than you would normally use for the alphabetic languages. And it just triggers all sorts of things that are really good for your memory and for you, even for your dexterity, right? The non-dominant hand dexterity also gets triggered. I'm just noticing it all the time. Every time I try to brush up on my Chinese writing, and I do it for a couple of weeks, I study really hard and I write it out, and suddenly my left hand gets so much more precise in the movements, and I start writing with my left hand, and it's just wow, something's really happening in my brain from all of this learning.
Yeah, it definitely triggers certain parts of the brain that's usually dormant. So a lot of benefits. But like, at one point my daughter's like, Mom, I don't want to take piano lessons anymore. I'm like, okay, you can cancel it. I'll save some money. I don't want to take ice skating. Okay, let's try something new. But Chinese school, nope. I'm like, you're gonna study until you graduate high school, and then you don't have to do it afterwards.
So there is no HSK level in mind. It's all just about graduating high school.
HSK, what is HSK?
Oh, HSK is an exam. It's a Chinese language exam. It's an international exam that I believe Chinese universities use it to accept foreign students. But it's essentially it's kind of like TOEFL and IELTS for English speakers. HSK
Oh,
is that for the Chinese speaker, for the people who are studying Chinese. And I
oh,
think there are like
interesting.
6+ levels. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I never looked into that, but that's interesting. Yeah, I'm having them take the AP Chinese exam, but that's the extent of it.
Yeah, but possibly if they ever want to go to college in China, for example, or to any kind of graduate program, they might need to take an HSK exam.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be good for them to be, knowledgeable in the Chinese language to be able to take that exam. That would be interesting for them to go to college in Asia and China. Yeah, I'm always like impressed by you, how you are able to be bilingual and speak Chinese fluently. That's very impressive.
I don't speak it that fluently. I would say I'm fluent in criminal defense and some immigration. These are the topics, the areas that I am really fluent in. But if I had to go, for example, out to a restaurant, I would be completely clueless because this is not the speech that I practice on a daily basis. And I think that's the thing with foreign languages. You get really fluent and you stay fluent in the areas that you actually practice. But if you stop practicing at some point, it just goes away.
Yes, yes. Yeah, but that's interesting because criminal law, immigration, those words are so much more complicated than just ordering food at a Chinese restaurant. So you got the hard part down.
Yeah, because I hear them all the time. I'm sitting down, I meet with criminal defense and immigration clients, and I do consultations and I go over cases with them. And usually I use a paralegal. And because I hear the translation all the time, I am also remembering those things and I'm able to talk to them as well if for some reason I don't have an interpreter, then I'm able to talk to my clients myself. And it also comes very useful in court because a lot of times in court, the interpreters are not 100% on point because they're tired, because the courtroom is too noisy. And it helps so much when you can spot the mistranslations and clear the issues right there instead of let the incorrect translation go on the record and then mess up the case. And an immigration case is often for years, it just stays on the record. So I just find it very useful and very helpful. And again, I'm in it day in and day out. So that's how I speak it.
Yeah, that one miscommunication could like cause a big confusion. So,
Oh,
and the
absolutely.
translators are not perfect.
Absolutely. And it can be a difference between an asylum being granted and an asylum being denied. And then a person having to leave the country and go back to some unknown fate.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think it's very useful. But
Yep.
thank you. Yeah,
Definitely.
it's fun to learn. I love learning it. I love just learning the words and brushing up on the vocabulary once in a while. It's a lot of fun.
There's a lot of Instagram channels with people who don't look Asian and then they can speak fluent Chinese, or
Yeah.
fluent other Asian language, and they get so many followers because I don't know what it is. Like Chinese people are very easily impressed when someone who doesn't look Chinese can speak Chinese, even just a few words, and so they love following people who look non-Chinese. So maybe something to
Hmm,
consider: starting a channel where you're just
huh.
speaking Chinese, and that will improve your Chinese and get a bunch
That's
of
true.
marketing done at the same time.
That's true. I might try it out next time when I post a video or something.
Yeah, yeah. I just started following this one comedian. I think his name is Lily Farland. I'll send it to you. He's so
Okay.
funny, and he's a white guy who speaks fluent Chinese and can actually like say different accents in Chinese too. So he's really good.
Oh, these are hard and hard to understand. All those
Yeah, yeah. I'm
accents
like,
and
I cannot
dialects.
even imitate, different dialects in the Chinese language, and this white guy can.
But you grew up in the States, right?
Yes, I was born and raised in California.
Right. Okay. And you speak Mandarin because your mom spoke Mandarin, right? Speaks Mandarin.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. We
Mm-hmm.
spoke it at home. So
Mm-hmm.
English was her second language. So she spoke Chinese to me because she was comfortable speaking Chinese.
Mm-hmm. How was this? So she immigrated to the States, right?
Yes, she moved
Yeah.
here from Taiwan. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she actually moved to South America first, Paraguay, because it's easier to
Oh,
immigrate to South America. And then from South America came to California.
how was her immigration experience in your recollection? Was it very difficult?
I don't know because she came with her family with my grandfather and my grandmother. So I think my grandfather pretty much paved the way. He was into investments, business, real estate, and so my grandparents paved the way for her. And then my father went to USC. He was studying engineering, so he also helped her as well. They got married, and so I think for my mom, it was just following her family over here. But I
Hmm.
haven't asked them too much about their immigration experience. Yeah, it seems pretty smooth. But they did spend a few
Yeah.
years in South America, so it
Hmm.
wasn't as easy as just coming here.
Would you say that your work ethic comes from your mom being an immigrant?
I think it might have to do with the immigration part of it, but I think more so than not, it has to do with the fact that my father committed suicide when I was three
Oh,
years old.
sorry to hear.
And so my mom at that time was a housewife. She had never worked a day in her life. She took care of me. She had just given birth to my brother, who's 2.5 years younger than me. And so all of a sudden, she's in this pickle where she has no husband. She has to raise and take care of two young toddlers
Yeah.
and make a living. So growing up, she kept me out of the kitchen. She didn't want me to ever be in a position similar to hers, where I'm depending on a man for financial support, and then he's gone, and I'm left with
Hmm.
a big mess in my hands. So she kept me out of the kitchen, did not teach me how to cook or clean or any of the domesticated things. So, because she wanted to make sure I knew how to make a living when I grew up. And she ended up teaching as her career. She would pick
Mm.
me and my brother up from school, and then at the same time, she would pick up some of our classmates from school too. Their parents had to work, and then she would take all the students to her home where she would feed us, and then we would all study together. And
Uh-huh.
that's how she was able to juggle taking care of her kids and making some income at the same time. And as we grew up, we were always in a study environment, studying with other students, studying with other classmates. So studying and schoolwork was like priority in our lives. She was all about making sure we were financially capable when we grew up, because our childhood was very unstable. We were living off of food stamps, government aid, the government, yeah. So, and a lot of moving too. I went to like four different elementary schools, two different middle schools before finally settling down in Walnut. So there a lot of moving around, a lot of instability. Since it was just my mom. She never remarried until my brother and I both went to college. So she finally remarried when we both moved out, and she's been with my stepdad for the last 20 years. But growing
So she
up, she just
dedicated
focused.
herself to you guys.
Yeah, she just devoted everything to me and my brother.
Oh wow, that's quite a sacrifice, and well, I guess she's very proud of you now.
I don't know. The tiger moms, they're not easily satisfied. So no matter what we
Oh,
do, it's always like, not good enough.
so you need to become a president or something like that, like that.
Yeah, and even then, maybe there's something after that. So
Something else.
I've learned to live for myself, right? Like make sure like I'm happy, and for most of my life, it was living for my mother's expectations to make her happy. And it
Hmm.
took a lot of transformation work and personal development to finally realize, like, no, my happiness is number one, and I'm here to live for myself, not for anybody else.
What triggered that transformation?
Um, I actually took a class called Mastery in Transformational Training.
Hmm.
And I took this in 2014. Actually, this was in the fourth year of my divorce. And
Hmm.
during that class, it was a 5-day program, and they taught about emotional intelligence, which is a topic that schools usually don't cover, right? Schools cover IQ stuff, math, history, English, law school, business school, but they don't talk about the soft skills. They don't talk about conflict resolution, dealing with relationships, how to manage people, how to deal with our childhood traumas, and how to find our passion in life, how to live for ourselves, how to set boundaries. None of that is usually taught in schools. People who love reading, they get that from the books. But if you
Hmm.
don't read about those personal development books, it's basically trial and error. So after I took that course, that was how I resolved my divorce with my ex-husband, because I learned about the power of taking responsibility, about not being a victim to my ex-husband, about how to approach problems with love and with an open mind. And that allowed me to become friends with my ex-husband. We went from enemies filing restraining orders to best of friends.
Hmm.
It was 180 transformation. And then during that experience, I learned about how, because my mom and I had a very rocky relationship. It's like a love hate relationship, because she's done so much for me. I'm not who I am
Hmm.
today without her. But at the same time, she comes from this mentality that she sacrificed for my brother and I. And so everything we do, we need to repay her for the rest of our lives, which is not a healthy way to live life. So it was a very difficult transition to be able to say no to her and not always just want to appease her, and not feel guilty about saying no to my mother,
Hmm.
who has done so much for me my whole life. So yeah, but like, even like one big decision, for example, is my marriage. I'm very happy with my current husband. He works with me. We're great partners, but my mom does not accept him,
Hmm.
because as a tiger mom, they only look at income. Right? She's like, "Oh, I'm
Oh,
not very picky about your spouse. He just has to be better than you in all aspects.
yeah.
Like make more money than you, cook better than you, raise the kids better than you.
Good
Like
luck with that.
that's my one criteria. Very very easy to satisfy. So if I
Hmm.
listened to my
That's a
mom, I
strong
would
man.
be,
So she wanted a strong man for you.
yes, she wants a strong man, but a strong man is not always a good match for a strong woman. My
Mm-hmm.
ex husband was a strong man, and we butt heads and
Mm-hmm.
clashed a lot. So a type A personality like me actually needs a type B personality, and my husband is type
Mm-hmm.
B. So we're a perfect match. He loves to cook. He loves to clean. He's very domesticated. He's a great father to our kids, but my mom doesn't approve of him. So if I always said yes to her, I would be a single woman today. I'd
Mm-hmm.
probably just be a single hag getting old by myself. But I learned to, live for myself, make decisions for what makes me happy, not just what makes my mom happy. As much as I love my mom, and it's been a healthy decision for me.
And maybe some of your clients could learn from that too, because I mean, we touched on that earlier, right? How the parents come with their grown-up children to ask questions, and the parents are so concerned about what their kid is going to get in divorce. And I was thinking that maybe this has to do with such level of involvement and sacrifice by the parents, because um, even though it's not typical here in the States for the American parents to be so involved, it's also usually not quite as typical to sacrifice so much, right? Especially give money for college a lot of times, right? And also I know that a lot of Chinese families and Asian families, they help their child, especially a son, buy a house, for example. Everybody pitches in, so that's why they're so involved, right?
Yeah, yeah. The Asian parents really are devoted to their kids. There's extra
Hmm.
tutoring, the extracurricular activities are through the roof. Like when I was growing up, we did everything: tap dancing, chess, go, voice lessons, piano lessons, you name it, art class,
Hmm.
everything. The non Asian kids usually don't go through that extreme,
Exactly.
childhood. So the parents really do feel like, hey, we put so much in you, we should get more return back. And my mom has said, if I knew you were going to settle with your current husband, I wouldn't have invested so much in you.
Oh, oh my God.
Yeah. So, different perspectives, different
Yeah.
generation.
But the other side of it is that also the even the poor kids get to grow up very successful a lot of times, right? That's why Asians are doing so much better than literally anyone else, like across the board, regardless of how wealthy they are, because parents of any income level would just go through such great lengths to make sure their kids get good childhood.
Yeah, money can't buy the true struggles and the lessons we learn from the struggles, which is why like I told my kids, like, don't expect me to be leaving a lot of money for you guys. You guys are going to be working hard for your own money. I want that motivation to come from inside them and not just be like, oh, mom has a business, I'm set for life,
Mhm.
I don't need to work hard. I don't
Mhm.
want, I never would want them to have that kind of mentality. So they work hard for everything, even their clothes. I tell
Mhm.
them, if you want to buy toys, games, stationery, clothes, you pay for it yourself from your own, from doing your chores and from getting good grades. So
Mhm.
nothing comes free. And I flew first class with them one time, and so they can experience it. And
Okay.
afterwards, they're in
No more.
economy. Me and my husband are
Okay.
first class. I'm like, you can pay for it in the
Uh-huh.
future when you get your own job.
That
But
is so
they've
cool.
experienced it once, so they know what it's like, and they have a goal to, work
Mhm.
for.
That is so. Are there any other qualities in your personality that you believe are hindering you, your success, your happiness that you're working on?
During the personal development classes, they say like if knowledge is a pie, and like maybe this sliver is what you know already, and this sliver is what you know that you don't know. The majority of the pie is what you don't know. So
Hmm.
there's so much out there that I don't even know I don't know it. And that's why I'm always saying yes to new adventures and new opportunities, because it's a way for me to learn something new that I might not even know I don't know right now.
Yeah, and as you're changing, the unknowable also changes too. So you're always in this new terrain, trying to figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done 10 years of personal development after I first took the mastery and transformation training in 2014. And
Mm.
sometimes I feel like the more I learn, the more I feel like I don't know. So it's, very controversial because there's just so much out there that, at one point I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to live every day with gratitude. And, if I keep learning, amazing. But if I stay the same, I just have gratitude. Gratitude is like the highest vibrational energy, it's like the 800 scale. So, one of my morning routines is, my coach, we have a call, and then I also have a 5-minute journal app on my phone. So I fill it in with 5 gratitudes, 5 affirmations, and 5 intentions for the day. And then at the end of the day, I put in what could have gone better, and what do I want to work on tomorrow.
Absolutely. So important. So important to keep you centered and not just look at everything from a place of want and dissatisfaction and maybe anger. Definitely
Hmm.
gratitude. I agree.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. And
agree.
if my kids come home and they have a bad day, they're complaining, I'm like, what are you grateful for? List 10 things you're grateful for. And after they list
Hmm.
10 things, their mood just immediately shifts. And then at
Right.
nighttime, one of our bedtime routines is to go over our gratitudes for the day as well. So that um, a habit of gratitude is very, um, it's like very normal to them. If I tell them to list their gratitudes, they have no problem listing a bunch of gratitudes because they do it on a daily basis.
Right. And it shouldn't be hard, right? Especially if you live in a good country and a good family. That's like 100 gratitudes right there.
You know what? You think that's the case, but a lot of people who don't have that habit, we have this beautiful country. We have so many things to be grateful for, and there's people out there that cannot list 10 gratitudes because their focus is so much on the negatives. Yeah, it's all mindset.
Unfortunately, unfortunately. And I think we used to have religious practices that would basically force people into being grateful, remembering to be grateful several times a day through prayer. And now that we don't have the prayer anymore, those who don't find it in self improvement or therapy or just come to it themselves, they can really fall into all this negativity because you're not reminded to be thankful for the things you have.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and that's why, like, prayer, religion, there's a lot of benefits to it. But more and more people are, having freedom of religion. They want to believe what they want to believe. But I think, regardless of what they want to believe, the practice of gratitude is so essential to a happy life.
Absolutely. Right. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I know you're extremely busy with your commitments to public service and growing your own business. And I want to wish you tons of success this year. And I'll be keeping my fingers crossed for you to win the city
Thank you
council.
so much. And we should definitely do lunch together again soon.